Michael Phelps glides through the water, every movement perfectly synchronized. Time seems to slow. The roar of the crowd fades away. In this moment, he's not thinking about Olympic medals or world records. He's completely absorbed in the pure flow of swimming. Across the world in a concert hall, a jazz musician closes her eyes, fingers dancing across piano keys. The music pours through her without conscious thought. She's not deciding what notes to play. They're simply emerging, as if the performance is playing itself. These peak moments of human performance share a fascinating common thread, a mysterious mental state that scientists call flow. It's that ephemeral zone where action and awareness merge, where time warps, and where people access heights of skill and creativity that seem almost supernatural. But what exactly is happening in the brain during these extraordinary episodes? How does a person slip into this optimal state where everything just clicks? And most intriguingly, can we learn to access it more reliably? In this investigation, we'll decode the neuroscience and psychology of flow states. We'll examine how they manifest across different domains, from athletes breaking records to coders writing elegant solutions, from artists creating masterpieces to students deeply absorbed in learning. The implications are profound. A 10-year McKinsey study found that executives in flow were up to 500% more productive. Research shows that people who frequently experience flow report much higher life satisfaction and lower rates of anxiety. Flow states might be more than just fascinating. They could be essential to both peak performance and human flourishing. So what exactly makes a flow state? Research has identified 9 distinct elements that characterize these peak moments. Think of them as ingredients in a recipe. When they all come together, magic happens. The first 3 elements are prerequisites. Without them, flow is unlikely to occur. Picture a video game that perfectly nails these foundations. First, the challenge matches your skill level. Not so easy you get bored. Not so hard you feel overwhelmed. Second, you have crystal clear goals. Defeat this boss, solve this puzzle, reach that checkpoint. Third, you receive immediate feedback. Your health bar drops when hit. Points pop up for successful actions. Progress is constantly visible. These same elements appear across all domains. A rock climber faces a route that pushes their limits without being impossible. Each hold is a clear mini-goal, and their body gives instant feedback about whether a move works. A surgeon performing a complex procedure operates at the edge of their expertise, with clear surgical objectives and immediate feedback from their instruments and team. The remaining 6 elements describe what it feels like once you're in flow. Deep concentration on the task at hand. A merging of action and awareness. You're so absorbed that doing becomes automatic. Loss of self-consciousness. Concerns about how you look or what others think fade away. A sense of control without actively trying to control. Time distortion. Hours can feel like minutes, or vice versa. And finally, the experience becomes autotelic, intrinsically rewarding, worth doing for its own sake. These elements explain why flow feels so distinctive. When a pianist is in flow, they're not thinking about playing. Their fingers just move. When an athlete is in flow, they're not worried about the crowd or the score. They're purely in the moment. The activity becomes effortless, yet highly effective. The power of these components working together is remarkable. According to Harvard research, people in flow states can absorb new information up to 70% faster. Athletes report accessing skill levels beyond their normal abilities. Even time itself seems to bend. Studies using brain imaging show that the neural networks governing time perception actually function differently during flow. Understanding these elements gives us a framework for engineering flow. Whether designing a classroom lesson, structuring a work project, or practicing a skill, we can intentionally create conditions where flow is more likely to emerge. The key is nailing those prerequisites, matching challenge to skill level, establishing clear goals, and ensuring rapid feedback loops. Think of flow like a delicate ecosystem. When all 9 elements are present and balanced, we enter an optimal state where performance soars and enjoyment deepens. Remove any element, make the challenge too high, blur the goals, delay the feedback, and that ecosystem becomes harder to sustain. What happens in your brain when you enter flow? Recent neuroscience has begun to unlock this mystery, revealing an intricate dance of neural networks and brain chemicals that create these peak moments of human performance. Let's start with a fascinating discovery from a 2024 study of jazz musicians. When these artists entered flow during improvisation, brain scans showed something remarkable. Parts of their prefrontal cortex, specifically the superior frontal gyrus, became less active. Scientists call this transient hypofrontality, a temporary downregulation of the brain's inner critic. Think about trying to shoot a basketball. When you're overthinking it, analyzing every aspect of your form, you often miss. But in flow, that self-conscious voice goes quiet. Your trained neural circuits take over, and suddenly, you're sinking shots without thinking. When someone enters flow, their brain reallocates its resources, like a city redirecting power during a major event. Areas involved in task execution light up with activity. A rock climber in flow shows intense activation in motor and spatial processing regions. A coder in flow displays heightened activity in problem-solving networks. Then there's the neurochemical cascade, flow's chemical cocktail that makes it feel so good. Dopamine, the reward neurotransmitter, floods your system, enhancing pattern recognition and creating that sense of intrinsic motivation. Norepinephrine puts you at an optimal level of arousal, alert and engaged, but not stressed. This brain state creates what one neuroscientist called an efficiency of consciousness. Your neural networks align for peak performance, filtering out distractions and enabling what athletes call letting the game come to you. A recent study using EEG found that experienced performers in flow showed brainwave patterns suggesting both high focus and low cognitive effort. They were doing more while trying less. What's particularly fascinating is how this matches the subjective experience people report. When musicians describe being one with their instrument, or athletes talk about the game slowing down, they're describing what these brain scans capture: a state where the usual boundaries between thinking and doing, between self and action, temporarily dissolve. The implications are profound. Understanding flow's neural signature helps explain why it's such a powerful state for learning and performance. When your brain quiets its self-critical regions while ramping up task-relevant circuits, you can access skills that are usually blocked by overthinking. Even more intriguing, new research suggests that experiencing flow regularly might actually reshape your brain over time, strengthening neural pathways for focus and performance. It's as if each flow state leaves a trace, making the next one a little easier to access. Can we deliberately create conditions that make flow more likely? By studying how flow emerges across different fields, from elite athletics to video game design, we can identify powerful principles for engineering these optimal experiences. Let's start in sports, where coaches have mastered the art of creating flow conditions. Take Olympic swimming programs. They use a technique called progressive overload, gradually increasing challenge to maintain that sweet spot where skills just barely match demands. When Michael Phelps trained, his coach Bob Bowman would deliberately create small adversities, like cracking Phelps goggles before a practice race, to build his ability to find flow even under pressure. Game designers are perhaps the most systematic flow engineers. A well-designed video game is essentially a flow-generating machine. Games like Portal or Zelda masterfully scale difficulty, provide crystal-clear goals, and offer instant feedback through sounds, visuals, and haptics. This creates what game researchers call engagement loops, cycles of challenge, mastery, and reward that keep players in flow for hours. In education, innovative teachers are applying these same principles. Instead of one-size-fits-all assignments, they create choice boards, where students can select challenges matching their current level. Clear rubrics provide the goals, while regular check-ins offer the feedback. One study found that classrooms using these flow-based principles saw student engagement increase by 43%. Corporate environments are being redesigned around flow principles too. Companies like Microsoft and Google now block out maker time, long stretches without meetings where developers can sink into deep work. They've found that a programmer in flow can accomplish in one afternoon what might normally take 3 days. Some tech firms even use flow metrics to track when and how often employees hit this optimal state. What's fascinating is how similar the underlying strategies are across domains. Whether you're designing a rock climbing route, a piano lesson, or a work project, the key elements remain consistent. First, create clear, concrete goals. Not just practice painting, but experiment with 3 new brush techniques. The more specific the target, the easier it is for the mind to lock in. Second, build in immediate feedback loops. Athletes have the scoreboard, musicians have the sound, but you can create feedback in any domain. Some writers use word count trackers, while project managers use visual task boards to make progress visible. Third, match challenge to skill level, but with a crucial twist. The sweet spot is when the challenge is about 4% beyond current ability. This creates what psychologists call desirable difficulty, just enough stretch to demand full engagement without triggering anxiety. Fourth, eliminate distractions and interruptions. Flow typically takes about 15 minutes to begin, but can be broken in seconds. This is why athletes have pre-game routines, artists have studios, and offices are creating quiet zones. Finally, make it personally meaningful. Flow is more likely when we deeply care about the task. This might mean connecting work to larger purpose, or simply choosing challenges that naturally intrigue us. What's particularly exciting is that technology is opening new frontiers in flow engineering. Adaptive learning software can now automatically adjust difficulty to keep students in their flow channel. Virtual reality environments can be precisely tuned to create flow-inducing conditions. Some companies are even experimenting with AI that monitors engagement signals and adjusts work parameters in real time to maintain optimal challenge levels. As we peer into the future of flow research and application, we're witnessing the emergence of technologies that might fundamentally change how we access these optimal states. But with these advances come crucial questions about the ethics and implications of engineering human consciousness. Imagine putting on an EEG headset that reads your brainwaves in real time, adjusting your work environment to keep you in flow. This isn't science fiction. It's already happening in research labs. Scientists can now identify distinct neural signatures of flow states, and artificial intelligence is being trained to recognize these patterns. Early experiments show that when tasks automatically adjust their difficulty based on these brain signals, people maintain flow states up to 40% longer. But this raises fascinating ethical questions. If we can reliably induce flow states, should we? Some researchers worry about what they call flow addiction, the risk of people becoming dependent on these peak experiences. Just as social media companies have been criticized for exploiting psychological triggers to keep users engaged, there's concern about the potential misuse of flow-inducing technology. In education, we're seeing the rise of adaptive learning environments that constantly adjust to keep students in their optimal challenge zone. Early results are promising. Schools using these systems report significantly higher engagement and faster skill acquisition. One study found that students in flow-optimized learning environments mastered new concepts up to 70% faster than traditional methods. The business world is particularly interested in flow's potential. Companies are exploring everything from office designs that facilitate flow states to AI-powered workflow systems that optimize task difficulty. Some organizations have even started measuring flow metrics alongside traditional productivity measures. According to recent research, teams that experience regular group flow are 150% more productive and report much higher job satisfaction. Perhaps most intriguing is the potential for personal development. New apps and devices promise to help people find their flow triggers, the specific conditions that help them enter these optimal states. Some combine biometric tracking with machine learning to identify patterns. What times of day you're most likely to achieve flow, what environmental factors help or hinder it, even what types of music or lighting enhance your focus. But amidst this technological frontier, we mustn't lose sight of flow's fundamental nature. It's not just about performance enhancement. It's about those moments when we feel most alive, most ourselves. The jazz musician lost in improvisation, the surgeon in perfect concentration, the writer when the words pour out effortlessly. These experiences touch something profound about human potential. This leads us to some critical questions worth pondering. In our rush to engineer flow, might we lose something essential about its organic, sometimes unpredictable nature? Is there value in the struggle to find flow naturally? And perhaps most importantly, how do we balance the benefits of optimized performance with the maintenance of authentic human experience? The future of flow seems likely to be a blend of art and science, of technology and human intuition. As we develop new tools to understand and access these states, we might find ways to make flow more accessible while preserving its fundamental magic. After all, flow states offer us a glimpse of human consciousness at its best, when we're so completely absorbed in what we're doing that the usual barriers between self and action dissolve. Understanding and facilitating these experiences might be crucial not just for performance, but for human flourishing in an increasingly complex world.